Well, I will call the meeting to order. And gavel. Welcome all to, I feel like I'm with the Brady family every time I do this. Welcome to everybody to our virtual meeting. We're going to try to be as effective and as efficient as we possibly can today. I met with Kate and Ben a couple of days ago, just kind of go through things we can do to make sure we are being appropriate in how we facilitate our business and as simple as possible for all the participants. When we get to the part in the meeting where we'll be looking at documents and plans and so forth, Kate will be responsible for putting those on the screen. We'll all be able to see those at the same time. We'll all be able to ask questions in the way we do. It's my understanding that Virginia and Joel are not able to be with us today. So I'm going to call the roll of those commissioners who I believe are here, and if you would just signify by saying here when I call your name, that's how we're going to do this for the record. Lance Butler. Here. Diane Scruggs.
Here.
Jacob Jordan. Here. Camp Best. Camp. Not here yet.
Hey, Jack, Camp is here, but he's having some difficulties right now with the system. I'm working with him on that.
Okay. Blair Hobbs.
Here.
Jolie Nichols.
Here.
And I'm Jack Garner, and I'm present. To simplify things a little bit further, you know, when we get to a point in a meeting where there's a need for a motion, and we're hopeful somebody's going to make the motion, and but it's even more difficult now not really being able to see everybody at the same time. So I'm going to ask if Diane Scruggs, as our vice chairman, would be willing to be responsible for making all motions. And when we get to that point in any particular situation where I feel like it's time to call the motion, call the question, I'm going to ask Diane every time if she will make a motion. That way, you know, we'll just have somebody on ready to do that. And Jacob, can I ask you to second motions again, so we won't have to play sort of the hunt tech or who's making the motion and who's seconding?
Be happy with you, Jack.
Does that make sense to everybody?
It does.
And Diane, I would say if it's a motion that you're not comfortable making, just say that, and we'll deal with that situation if it comes up. Yes,
Thank you.
Okay. So the next item on our agenda is the approval of our agenda. Diane, is there a motion that we approve our agenda?
And I so move to accept.
And Jacob, is there a second? I think on this one we can all signify our vote just by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed by the same sign? The motion carries. The next item on our agenda is approval of our January 21st minutes. Are there any corrections to our minutes that we received earlier for January 21st?
I make a motion to approve.
A motion has been made. Is there a second, Jacob?
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to approve our minutes as presented for January 21st. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? We now move to our public hearings, request for certificates of appropriateness. The first case on the agenda is case number 613, Robert and Zelda Dexter, 503 North 15th Street, a building and the proposal to build a new building. Kate, I'll ask if you will present this case to us.
Okay, thanks, Jack. Just to fill you guys in, Jay Hughes, who's our second applicant, I was talking to him and he's working to get on the line, so he might join while we're going. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you guys so that we can see the case file. And it should replace my little box with plans. Okay, so the first case we're going to consider is case number 613. That's the proposed demolition of the existing building at 503 North 15th Street, and they're also requesting permission to build a new single-family home on that site. As you guys remember, the request for demolition, if approved, is tied to the approval of plans for the new building. So both must be approved today if the demolition is to go through. The existing one-story house is listed as non-contributing in the historic district. Fairly simple in form. I included a little description of it from our historic resource inventory. You'll note that none of the existing materials that are visible are original. The house is covered in vinyl siding. It has metal replacement windows. Although the house is estimated to have been built circa 1920, it seems like these alterations were in the late 80s, early 90s. So there's not a lot of original material remaining. I've listed the criteria for demolition in the staff report, which you guys will go through. Jack will take you through. Staff found that the new building design is acceptable. It's a new two-story house. It is an interesting lot. It slopes very sharply downward. It's very similar to the case number 601, which we considered at our October 2020 meeting. You'll note there that instead of doing a front-facing garage, the applicant proposed a treatment that it is the garage, but it looks more like the front facade of the house rather than having garage doors on the street. So that's something to consider, is the idea of having a street-facing garage. But we thought that the building was appropriate in that. And I found the design acceptable, although there are some casement windows on the north elevation that we're recommending should be double hung, just because the design guidelines recommend that windows for new construction are similar to what's existing, the existing historic fabric. And I think it looks a little bit strange when you've got all these double hung windows and the sash is pulled up or down to open the window when you're proposing a casement on a traditional looking window, they're all going to be sort of flung out into the side, and that's just not appropriate. So I'm going to scroll down so that you guys can see so here's the existing house that's proposed for demolition, and then you see the plans for the new building. And so I'm happy to answer any questions, and also Corey, we have I don't think we have a name for that one. Corey is also here to present. So Corey, you want to take it away?
Kate, is this house occupied at the moment?
I'm not sure. That might be a question for Corey. I would assume it's a rental.
Has it been rental property?
Corey, can you answer that? Corey?
I think he has his speaker off, doesn't he?
Apologies, I was muted. I apologize, but yes. Can y'all hear me now?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. The short answer is I don't know if it's currently rented. I know that it's been rental property. I was wholly unaware of the home that's there now until I was engaged by my clients course, I've been working with Jay, and the property adjacent to this received a COA last month or month before.
I should get a little background on it. So, Corey, will this be the home or the second home of the Dexters? Or is it going to be rental property again?
No, I think it's going to be their Oxford home.
I see.
They currently live in Corinth. I don't know a lot about their personal business. I do know that their son is getting married, and I do know that I've met him, and I have met the bride-to-be, if you will. But I anticipate this being their Oxford home. It will not be for rent. I can assure you that.
Right.
But the home that we've designed is basically the one story along the street. The rear yard that you see in the photographs is basically, you'll see how steeply sloping it is with the photographs, but my inclination is that what we have is a one-story house that faces the street, much like the other houses in the neighborhood. Because this is a dead-end street, it's not a free street. There's only a couple of other houses on the street. So it's basically a one-story house that has a huge slope in the back, and so we're putting the ancillary functions beneath the ground floor.
But before we go too deeply into the new house, let's focus a little bit on the demolition of the existing structure on the property, the considerations that we are obligated to consider before we approve a demolition are these: to consider the individual architectural, cultural, and our historical significance. Thank you, Jay. The architectural, cultural, or historical significance of the structure. To consider the importance or contribution to the architectural character that this structure plays in the historic district. To consider the contribution that this structure has to neighboring property values. And finally, to consider the difficulty or impossibility to replace this structure or reproduce it because of its design or the materials that it's built with or any other details. So as we focus on this part of this question, those are the considerations for demolition. Does anybody have any observations or feel like any of these considerations that I've mentioned should be of concern to us?
Jack, why don't you one at a time?
All right. The individual architectural, cultural, or historical significance. Architecture, cultural, meaning the house played a part in a significant part in our history, historical significance. Anybody, does that punch a button, any of those things when looking at the structure? The next is to consider the importance or contribution of the architectural character of this house in our historic district.
It does not.
The next consideration is the impact it might have if we demolished it on neighboring property values. I can't imagine how this would depreciate any contiguous property values.
I can't either, but I'd like to hear from Camp.
Is Camp with us yet? And the fourth
I'm here. He's here.
Camp, I'm going through the criteria for approval of a demolition. And you're familiar with those, architecture, historical significance, can it be replaced, what effect would it have on the historic district if it were no longer there, and if we wanted to reproduce it, could it be material so forth, be recreated. We appreciate your perspective of demolition of all sorts. So we welcome your comments about this project.
Yeah. So thank you, Jack, and thank you, Diane. I'm just wondering too, Corey, do you know if anybody took a look at whether or not the property could be stripped back to its original? Since it was built in the 1920s, did anyone explore taking it back to its original standing?
To be honest with you, I don't know. I don't know if the structure is 1920s. I think that's a supposition based on a preliminary analysis that when I looked under the house, I didn't see anything in there that was like 1920. The foundation underneath the house, I just don't see it to be that old. Now, obviously, I didn't do a lot of forensic analysis, but when you walk in that lower floor and you look up, I didn't see hand-hewn beams. I saw dimension lumber that was machine-made. And if something that was that old, I would expect to see more handmade kind of quality of the foundation or the floor framing or the decking. When I looked in there, I didn't see anything that looked like it was 1920s. So I think that's all I can really represent at this point.
When would you date it to, Corey?
50s, 60s maybe? I didn't see anything that was handmade. So,
okay.
Usually you'll see the floor framing, you'll see floor beams, you'll see, even in floor decking, you'll see stuff that's sort of rough hewn and sawn and things that we see in other properties in the same district. But I didn't see any of that. I think the 20s is because it was a quick, down and dirty, probably that old, probably not. But if I had to guess, a concrete block porch and floor framing in the basement, it could be as old as 50s, but my guess it's going to be 70s or 60s or something.
Okay.
I didn't see anything at all. I guess I should just say that.
Yeah. Well, that's helpful. I appreciate that. Again, I think you guys and everyone knows how I feel about what appears to be an increasing amount of demolition that's coming before us. And that just could be because we're now getting to the point where, there's only so many properties that are available for folks to come in and build larger homes. Again, it is hard. I agree that this property does not have any outstanding value to it any longer as far as contributing to the historic district. I guess my concern is as these smaller cottages, regardless of their age, as they are demolished, it's the size of the new structures that are coming back to replace them that is really more of a concern to me in this particular situation, is that the character of the neighborhood is completely changed by the new homes that are coming back. Again, I'm a realist about this as well. I understand that somebody's not going to come back in and build necessarily a cottage-sized home because it won't necessarily accommodate their needs. But I just think we need to be careful. I feel like we're getting more and more requests for demolition. It's kind of a slippery slope. I think the other thing that we're seeing, as long as I'm talking, I'll keep going just a bit. Pretty much every home that comes back to us now is a painted brick home. And so even though painted brick is something that we have stated in our ordinance that we prefer not to have in our district, pretty much all the homes that are coming back that we're approving are of painted brick. So before long, it's going to be really hard for us to hold to that particular philosophy. None of these are laws. They're philosophies that we're going by, policies, right? So I think in this particular situation, I feel like part of me wants to abstain so that I don't have my name on tearing down any houses in this town, but I think this is one that doesn't seem to have a whole lot of value. I just think we need to really be aware of where we're heading with a lot of this.
Thank you, Cam.
You got it.
What is the footage of this house?
I'm sorry, Diane, you have something?
What is the square footage of this house?
The ground, if I would, I'd like to kind of agree with Camp on the general sort of philosophy about replacing homes in historic districts. While I'm shuffling through some drawings here, obviously the Zoom part of this makes it a little more difficult, but the upper floor of this house is 1,775 square feet. Now that's heated, so you do have the garage component, but I think it's important that from the streetscape, that if this were a two-story house on the street and it had a third floor below it, then obviously you'd be looking at a different situation. I mean, part of our design philosophy is here's from the street, it's walk it up to the house, and that it's a one-story house. The 20-foot, grade change going through really kind of demands you don't go up, you go down. And so while we have a huge hole to fill in, our goal is what's the most economical way to do that? And you can see that even our lower floor on that drawing that Kate has pulled up now is still 8 or 9 feet out of the ground. It's a huge hole. If you haven't driven by, you should go by and take a look at it. It's a huge hole. But I couldn't agree more that the majority of the houses in this area are one-story homes from the street. And I have presented stuff in front of the commission years ago where I was putting a two-story house, where a one-story house existed, and it was denied because it didn't fit the other houses in the neighborhood from the street. And so that's why I think the streetscape is important. I think proportions are important. I think details are critically important. So we've tried really hard here to go, how do you make something that looks like it would fit in a historic preservation district and not just create a house that's, my clients want to have? Because clearly, I think, given the size of the lot and where we're locating on the lot and where it is in the neighborhood, we've done, I think, as good as we can do to give a scale that's more appropriate.
And I think you did a good job, Corey. I think it looks good.
I'd like to pick up on something that Kate alluded to earlier. We approved a new construction of a house very, very close to this in October, I think, or recently. One of our concerns about houses in this area has to do with garages attached to the house that are on the front of the house. That's really not appropriate for this vintage neighborhood. The house I'm referring to, we saw a couple of months ago, the garage doors that face the street, as this one does, were camouflaged to appear to be the front facade of the house, which I think struck the commission as a good alternative. I would like for us to talk about why we would not ask the same thing to be done with this house. Any comments from any other commissioners? That is to replace the traditional garage doors on the front facade of this house, or that portion of the house with the alternative that we saw and approved a couple of months ago that makes it appear to be the same facade on both sides of the house rather than a garage.
How do you feel about that, Corey?
Well, my first preference is to have the garage doors on the back of the house, or certainly down behind where anything happens. And I think you'll see, in the other houses being proposed on this street, that that's precisely what we intend to do. Given the topography of this is making that virtually, given the site narrowing. And if you look at the site, the way it's notched particularly tightly.
Corey, excuse me for interrupting. We understand the topography and the preference would be to have the entrance somewhere else. We agree with you, and we understand that challenge. But the question is, instead of having traditional doors on the front-facing garage, to use an alternative that would have the appearance of not being a garage.
Again, the house you see in that site plan, the one that's just north of us, the garage doors that are there, that's something that we would have to address. That's a house that I'm working with Jay on, and those garage doors are being custom made, and what we have, and I don't really know if you can see, my camera, but, this is the door that I specified to go there. It is a wood stained door, and it is a handmade door, and it is a garage. It is, I don't know what else, I'm just trying to say, I'm trying to go, this is what we're trying to do, and if that reads to you at all, but we're trying to do the best we can do given the design considerations impactful. I mean, I don't know that we couldn't go back and go, let's design a custom door that functions in a way that would give you a better sense that we're trying to make it look like the front of the house. But a garage is not a home, it's a garage. So there's a part of the philosophical architectural part that we go to garage and not part of the home. Could it be a carport and the garage doors be gone? That could be an option. Although I think my clients would prefer not to have their rear end of their cars facing the street. So we're, I guess, open to suggestions, I guess, there.
I'd like to hear from other commissioners about this topic. I mean, it's just a new idea that we first encountered recently, and I think we need to discuss our challenge for consistency if we are requiring it of one and not of another. So I'd just like to hear comments from commissioners, please.
Well, Jack, I think we want to be more consistent. The problem with that is not every house that comes before us lends itself to that. This is a relatively small lot. It does have issues with trying to move a garage in any way, shape, or form. It could be disguised like we requested from some of the others. I'd be anxious to know if there are any houses on that street that have garages at the front.
Hey, Corey. This is Lance. I don't see. Maybe you could explain what alternative would you have if you didn't put the garage on the front? I mean, you would have to put a driveway and put the cars down below. Is that the only alternative?
Well, you can see from the site plan that the driveway width requirement and the topography would require retaining walls that are large. I mean, they'd be 15 the turnaround area and the width it takes to pull in sideways and then turn sideways, and this has been an issue with a lot of narrow lots, to be honest with you, Lance. I mean, narrow lots in a historic preservation district, generally driveway goes all the way to the front, everybody backs out. There's no real room for turnaround space. The property just north of us that was approved, and I think Jack mentioned October, I don't recall exactly when, but just recently, in the last 4 months, that I was working with Jay on, when those doors swing open like a, like a pair of doors swing open, as opposed to swinging up, like a garage door rotates up. These rotate out like a pair of doors, so you could create more of that front facade that looks more like a windowed front of the house, but at the end, it's a relatively esoteric solution to what is a car garage. It will still, house cars. I mean, it's nuanced, I guess, is my point from there.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with what you're doing with, in consideration of the lot itself. I don't see an issue with it. That's me personally.
The homes you designed are certainly attractive. Yeah, I mean, they are architecturally pleasing. I do appreciate that. Any other comments, concerns about the garage doors?
No, this is.
I'm sorry, we can't hear Blair. Hey, Blair.
Okay. Hey, no, I'm down that. And I agree with him. That, we just can't say every. I don't. Tearing down of anything kind of makes me sad, but I do think Corey did a really good job with this, and that house is in very bad state. And when he said retaining wall, I think that would be worse than the garage.
Hey, Blair, I'm sorry, but your connection is breaking up considerably. It's difficult to understand exactly what you're saying.
Okay. Sorry.
Good. Is the chat working?
Yep. I was just getting ready to suggest that. Blair, if you wouldn't mind just typing that in the chat, and then we'll make sure that gets brought into the record. If I may, Jack, just make a brief comment to Diane's question about the street and if there are other garages that face that way. Just taking a quick look at Google Maps, which appears to be slightly outdated. It does not accurately reflect Hume's house on the corner. Most of the garages or carports are recessed. And I did not see one all the way back, but I can't recall how the Bryant house, if there's a garage there or if that's a carport. But I do know that it comes off of North 15th Street. I thought it was a carport, but maybe I'm wrong.
Hey Ben, I'm pretty sure it's a carport.
That's what I thought.
Are there other observations or comments about the proposed new construction of this house? There'll be two votes, of course. The first vote is going to be whether we demolish, vote to approve the demolition of the existing house, and then the second vote will be on the new house. And just, I've studied the regs a little bit this week. If we vote to approve the demolition, and then we do not approve the plans for the new house, the vote for the demolition becomes void. But but we're going to talk about that a little bit more at the end of this particular case. Any other questions about the new house construction? Corey, I have a little bit of a problem with the roof line of this proposed construction at the ends. As it flares out, it does flare. Instead of being a straight line, it flares out, which is very attractive. I just don't know that it really, yeah, there we go, okay. It just seems to me to be a little fancier than what most of those roof lines are on that street. Am I mistaken?
Well, Jack, let me say thank you very much for noticing the very subtle nuances of what we're trying to do to make something look custom while still fitting into an entire neighborhood that isn't.
Yeah. You're welcome.
The short answer is it's designed to have a little bit of a nuance in order for the people who have a discerning eye to go, that looks more craftsman and custom and less, I'm going to call it, with all due respect, builder contractor.
Well, that answer is appealing to me, that you're attempting to make it look more craftsman. I've not thought about that.
It's minor, it is nuanced, but the fact that you noticed it brings a smile to my face.
Well, that's probably the most clever response I can imagine before the commission.
Jack, are you asking for a motion for the demolition?
Yes, we would begin by a motion to approve the demolition of this structure at 503 North 15th Street. Diane, do you make that motion?
I do make that motion.
And Jacob, is there a second?
Second.
Is there further discussion about the demolition of this property? If not, I will call roll, and please signify your approval of the motion to demolish the house with an aye.
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 Great. I'm looking for the name of Lance.
Aye.
Diane.
Aye.
Jacob.
Aye.
Camp.
Aye.
Blair. We've lost Blair. Jolie.
Aye.
And Jack votes aye. The motion carries. Second part of this business will be to, I'm hearing a feedback from my own voice, will be the consideration to approve the plans for the new construction of the house that Corey has designed. Is there a motion, Diane?
I so move, unless you'd like to stipulate something about the garage doors.
No, I'm having heard no other comments from commissioners and having heard Corey's explanation, I'm good with it. I just wanted to make a nod to that flare.
Okay, then I so move that we approve the new construction plan.
Motion has been made. Is it second?
Second.
Jacob?
Yep.
Are there any more comments or questions about the motion? If not, all in favor? I'm sorry. If not, please signify your vote by saying aye. Lance?
Aye.
Diane?
Aye.
Jacob?
Aye.
Camp?
Aye.
Blair? Jolie?
Aye.
Jolie? Jack votes aye. The motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Corey.
Thank you.
Hey guys, before we move on, I just wanted to say something about painted brick. I know we've discussed that a lot at this commission. I've been here about 2 years, and I have seen this commission several times deny a request to paint historic brick, which is what I think the intent of the guidelines is. The new construction portion of the design guidelines for masonry talks a lot about brick veneer and making sure that the veneer is of an appropriate depth to have a mortar joint so that the veneer looks correct, but doesn't really mention painted brick. You know, personally, I'm not a fan of painting any brick. I think you're just introducing a maintenance nightmare. But it is trendy right now, and for new construction, I don't necessarily think that you're out of order in approving it if that's what you guys choose to do, as you just did. The only time I have seen the commission approve, and again, I've only been here 2 years, but the only time I've seen you guys approve a painted brick for an existing building, it was a non-contributing building. It was that 1608 South Lamar, which Corey also worked on, that had just like a random brick veneer in the front and nowhere else, and that sort of unified the whole facade. So I don't think by approving painted brick on new construction, you're just saying whatever painted brick is allowed now. I mean, I have seen you guys hold the line on historic brick, which is what is most damaged by paint. So that's just something to think about. I'm not advocating for painted brick in new construction, but I am saying you can hold the line on historic, and you have. So.
Thank you, Kay. Next on the agenda is COA application number 614, submitted by Phase 1 Limited for a demolition and structure at 510 15th Street. Kate, will you present that information for us?
Sure, and I believe Jay has joined us. Let me see. I'm going to share my screen.
I'm here.
Great, thanks, Jay.
Hello, Jay.
As you guys know, this is on the same street. The applicant requests approval to demolish the existing building located at 510 North 15th Street. So there's already been a subdivision of the lots approved at the Planning Commission and the Mayor and Board of Aldermen to divide the space that Jay has purchased into 3 lots. It's going to be called Porch View, and this is the first house to be approved on one of those lots. And I'll scroll down so that you guys can see that aerial view of that in a moment. The existing building, 510 North 15th Street, basically bisects 2 of the lots. It sits on the line of 2 of the lots. The existing building is listed as non-contributing. It's a little 1-story bungalow. I believe I'm not sure, Jay might know more about this. I believe it was a rental, but it's been vacant for many years. It's in very poor condition. And similar to the building we just looked at, it's covered in asbestos siding, metal frame replacement sashes, etc. As far as the design for the new building, staff we did have a staff concern about the design that Jay went ahead and addressed when we updated the plans on Wednesday. So what you guys have been seeing are the current plans. It's a 2-story house with an attached rear carport. And staff does believe that the design of the new building meets the Oxford design spec. So I'm going to scroll down to the survey. Let's see. We have elevations, and then here's a rendering of the proposed home to go back. Oh, sorry, I'm lost. Jay, why don't we let you present while I get this to reload?
Sure. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Good. Yeah, thank y'all, and I appreciate y'all taking the time on an afternoon with this kind of weather. First and foremost, what I would love to do is kind of set the stage and address some of the very genuine concerns of Camp a moment ago. Camp, I've always appreciated your insight and your true desire for preservation and district and looking at the neighborhood as a whole. And while you were talking earlier, I want to echo what Corey said, and that is I agree with your concerns. On this street, in terms of a character of a neighborhood, what you had on that side of the street was for lack of a better term, well, no, it's an accurate term, a dilapidated property that had been a rental for decades, and it sat on a gully, and it was on a very wide lot that was not maintained or kept up. What we want to do, and what we did with Porchview is we bought the land, we negotiated with the city, and bought what was a gully that was an unopened Adams Street. And with that, we have worked with engineers and city engineer to run pipes and address the major drainage issues there, and go ahead and fill in that gully that will make it usable neighborhood living space. All of those properties were either rentals or vacant rentals in states of disrepair, this one to the point that it was not even rented anymore. And as Kate properly noted, it has asbestos siding. It's not old. No one has done a forensic analysis of it, but I've crawled on my belly like a reptile under it, and it's made with dimensional lumber under there. And everything indicates it too was a 50s, 60s kind of year. It looks like Sam Woodard built the properties across the street in 72, and this has always been a rental area. There are still rentals and residences up on the southern part of the street. And what we would like to do in terms of the character of a neighborhood is have this street that's become, it's a dead end. That's some input from my nephew there. Have it be much like what we've done on North 14th Street. And that is when my wife and I chose to make that our home 10 years ago, it was almost all rental properties and very poor shape. And we endeavored to redo 7 or 8 of them and respect the historical guidelines, worked with y'all on every one of them. And now we have a mixture of rental properties on that street and people who are residents and who have children that are growing up, and it's a true character of a neighborhood. And with Rick Addy and his mother-in-law that live on that street as well, they're hoping to see this street that time had kind of let go return to a neighborhood where people live there, and there'll be rental houses up on the front part, not on ours. And going to the point that Kate made about painted brick, mine is not proposed to be painted brick. Mine is proposed to be a brick foundation that's like there. It's a raised foundation with brick around it, and then plank siding with divided light windows, and respect the traditional style, height, and shape. And even going with a carport at the rear instead of a garage and instead of facing the street, but it would be a carport, very much traditional styling. So that's what we've tried to respect, and going back with the primary floor with not much more space than what's there. But my goal is to improve it and make it a walkable neighborhood with front porches on every house that can return it to the kind of the charm that I think the historic district embraces. So that's mine. That's it.
Thank you, Jay. Let's first focus our conversation on the demolition of the existing structure. And as we do this, I'm going to read again the areas of consideration, so that any comments that you might want to make, please be mindful of these considerations as you do. Considering the individual architectural, cultural, or historical significance of the structure, considering the importance or contribution to the architectural character of the historic district. Consider the contribution to neighboring property values, and consider the difficulty or impossibility to reproduce because of texture, design, material, or detail. So I would ask for any comments that deal with reservations about approving a demolition of this property.
I just have one question, really. I'm not sure if it was already addressed, but I wanted to know if, Jay, these houses will be sold or are they going to be rental?
Great question, Diane. They are all going to be sold. We have, as part of the Planning Commission, been required to file protective covenants of the subdivision, and they require that for a period of 30 years that they must be owner-occupied and can't be leased, rented, or traded, or put on VRBO or any other internet format as far as nightly, weekly, or any brief time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions for Jay about the demolition or observations about the demolition of this property?
You know, I'm just going to say that it makes sense that since we've approved the demolition of the other structure nearby, it only makes sense to be consistent in approving the demolition of this structure as well, especially knowing that it's also probably in worse shape than the other structure that we just approved demolition on. And, you know, to be consistent and to also assist in the proper redevelopment of that area, it only makes sense, I think, to approve demolition here as well.
Thank you, Cam. Let's talk about the new construction now, and then we're going to come back and vote on the demolition also. But Kate, could you show us the facade or any of the drawings of the new proposed house? There we go. And Kate, again, after review from the staff, are there any concerns that staff has about this house? Kate or Ben?
Sorry, I was muted. Staff did. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Staff did find that the design meets the guidelines. Jay has some changes made to the original plans with the picture window, and we're satisfied that it meets those recommendations. I'm gonna cut off and put the plans back up now.
Thank you. So, Jay, that is a detached carport. Is that with a breezeway connecting the two? Is that correct?
It is a semi-detached, much like the one that's being beautifully redone over on Jefferson Avenue next door to Tom Sharp's house. So it's what they call a semi-detached, but it is a carport, and it was very important to make it a carport as opposed to a garage for me.
It's very attractive.
Thank you.
I do want to comment as well. I appreciate the effort of building back a carport, and I also appreciate the effort of putting brick back in that's not painted.
Well, thank you.
Sure.
Kate was accurate. It does create a maintenance issue.
It does, absolutely, no question about it.
Are there any other questions or comments about the plans for the new house? If not, I would ask for Diane to make a motion for the demolition of the existing structure, please.
I so move. I'd like to make a motion for demolition on this project.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any other conversation? If not, all those in favor of granting the permission for demolition, Lance Butler?
Aye.
Diane Scruggs?
Aye.
Jacob Jordan?
Aye.
Camp Best?
Aye.
Blair Hobbs?
Aye.
Jolie Nichols?
Aye.
And Jack Garner votes yes, aye also. Are there any opposed? I think that's impossible, but the motion carries. Now, Diane, would you make a motion for the approval of the new construction?
I make a motion the plans as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there additional conversation or comments? If not, please vote yes for approving this. Lance Butler?
Aye.
Diane Scruggs?
Aye.
Jacob Jordan?
Aye.
Camp Best?
Aye.
Blair Hobbs?
Aye.
Jolie Nichols?
Aye.
And Jack Garner votes aye. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is a complimentary review, and we're glad to have the Freemarks with us. Mr. and Ms. Freemark?
Yes, Primark.
I'm sorry.
Primark.
This is for a house at 1410 Madison Avenue, and since it is for a complimentary review, there's really not a staff recommendation, so that's not a part of this. We've all read your information. We've seen pictures of the structure. We understand much of the situation. If there's anything else you would like to share with us, we'd be happy to hear it at this time.
I think, we put our reasons for wanting to demolish down in there, and you've read those, so I don't see any point in going over those again unless you have questions about those. We're not sure what we would want to build exactly in replacement of it, but we're thinking of something small with a garage in the back. But the main point is that we're kind of at a point where there's not we don't want to put a lot of effort into coming up with new designs if everybody hates the idea of tearing this down, and we don't want to put a whole lot of money into trying to fix this up if we're going to build a new building. And so we're kind of at a point where we wanted to get the feel of the committee on whether or not we might be able to take it down.
Well, we're looking at the pictures of it. It certainly inspired architecture. And we appreciate you doing this. These complimentary reviews, I think, are win-win really for everybody. So thanks for doing this. And I would open the floor for comments from the commission. Your request just to know if this were for real, understanding we don't have plans to do construction, but what would this group's impression be of the possibility of demolishing some or all of this structure we're looking at? Camp, can I open the floor with your comments?
Absolutely, and I appreciate the segue on some or all, because that's my question. It appears, and I want the Freimarks to tell us what they know. It appears that the original structure is the one-story cottage-like structure that fronts on Madison. Is that correct?
That's correct. And Jan's brother built four-story addition on the back.
Right. So have you guys considered trying to keep the original structure, the cottage, that was in keeping at one time with all the other cottages along Madison there?
It's our hope to rebuild something for a retirement home for us. The front has had a leaking roof. It has had water underneath. It's incredibly musty, and I could not live in that. It would be an impossibility. I'm very willing to build a cottage-type building that's very simple, that is a lot smaller than this, and has a garden area. We're gardeners. It would be our home. But I can't live in that old building. I cannot.
Yeah, I certainly honor that, and no one would want you to. But is it possible to rehab it where it is livable, the front part of the house?
We don't think so, because there's been if you walk in there with me, you will see it is so musty and moldy. I have owned numerous houses in my life, many, and we have gone to incredible expense to try to get them not to be, have that issue, and we have never been successful. So I'm unwilling to put a lot of money into something that's not going to work.
Sure.
And my intention is to build something rather historic, cottage looking, very simple. I mean, of course, whatever it would have to be would have to have the commission's approval. But, I mean, that's my desire. I need a new building to be able to breathe. I had asthma as a child, and this is just not something that I can do. We have also had the building for sale, and no family is going to want that building. 4 stories straight up, 1 room on top of the other, a lot of leaking roof, window issues. It had water running under it for months during the last part of my brother's life, and that's one of the reasons it's so musty.
Do y'all know what does the original cottage date to? What is the origin date of the original cottage?
I don't know.
Probably that whole street was, I'm guessing, built about the same time.
Right.
You know, if I had to take a guess, I would say, you know, GI Bill era, just after World War II, but that's a guess.
Yeah. Kate, do you know? I think it's a little bit earlier than that.
It's a little bit earlier than that. I apologize for not including the inventory survey. We have that. The building is listed as non-contributing, obviously, due to the alterations. If I had to guess, I'd say late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah.
Based on the style of house, that's a time that, like, Tudor revival was pretty popular, and that kind of arched doorway on the front kind of evokes that era. But it's definitely earlier than the Avon Acres houses, which were like the 40s and 50s.
Yeah, thanks, Kate.
I just want to add that in looking at this house, it really kind of takes me back. I'm one of 6 children, and every time my parents had another child, they added on another room. And so that's how on you.
My brother was single.
Yeah, the carpenters would show up and add on another room, and this is what this house reminds me of.
Kate, can we look at it again?
Sure, no problem. It reminds me of New Orleans Camelback a little bit, you guys, if anyone knows those.
Yeah. Can y'all hear me? This is Blair.
Yes, there.
Okay, finally. That property, I guess last week, I noticed how bad off it looked. You know, that roof is rusting. It's odd, you know, the main part, because it's part of that historic neighborhood. And I'm new to the commission, so this is I guess what we call a courtesy review. And I understand that y'all's you know, but I'd be interested to see, you know, and what they do to preserve it.
I'm sorry, all of that broke up and we didn't hear any of it.
Say it again.
Want me to try again?
Can you hear us, Blair?
Please, we did not hear that.
Blair, were you asking about going a little further in the attempt to see if anything about the original house could be saved and made healthy? Is that what you were saying?
Yes.
You know, if we were to look at this and that...
Yes, that's what I was saying.
If all that addition were not there, if that just were not part of our consideration, and we were just looking at this original cottage structure and asking ourselves about demolition of it, it would be it'd be much simpler question. Wouldn't it?
I think another thing, though, is that we all have seen where families come in and buy a piece of property and want to tear it down. And what we're seeing now is this family who inherited it. It's not like they decided they would build a new house and just buy a piece of property and tear down a house. We're looking at a family that inherited something and it doesn't fit their health needs. It doesn't, which is entirely different from what we normally see as a commission. We normally see where a realtor said, look, I'll sell you this property, you can tear it down and build what you want. And then they come before us and we go, hold it, not so fast. This is a little bit different. I think we have to address that.
Very good point.
Another point is, if you don't take it down and you leave it as it is, what are you going to do with it? It's only a rental property then. And it is a huge rental property. And so, you know, we're talking money here. Why would I want to tear it down just to the little basic and spend a lot of money on it to rent it? The neighbors don't want that. They don't want that house packed with renters.
All good points.
You know, we have spoken with all the renters, all the neighbors. Dr. Tan, as you know, the properties around there, the gated community. There is one rental property on one side of the house that I believe the Crawfords own. And then immediately behind it, we have multifamily. And, you know, Murray Avent came out and begged me. You know, he said, please y'all live there or tear it down. And that's kind of been the consensus immediately across the street, too.
Let me I'm not going to poll the commissioners, but let me ask commissioners, or do any of you have problems based on the information we have right now and no more information? Do any of you have problems with the possibility of seeing this whole structure demolished?
Jack, this is Jolie. I just have one question. If the homeowners are looking to build a simple bungalow in the fashion of the historic look, would they be open to building back almost the exact same thing like the front house?
We want something with a front porch that is one story, and And I would hope to have a garage on the back, maybe even, I mean, we don't have our plans together, but it would be something very simple. We are retired. I cannot climb steps. I love that neighborhood because it's so walkable, and I grew up in that area. And, you know, it's been part of my family for a long time.
We need to give these folks as much indication as we can about our thinking about the demolition of the house. I think I'm sorry. Not in control of my electronics. We need to give as much of an indication as we can about our feelings about demolition of their property. We're not going to vote, but again, if there are those on this commission that feel strongly enough about not being okay with demolition, I'd just like somebody make that.
Jack, I'm sorry to interrupt again. I just wanted my question to be clear. If we did eventually approve, I understand the health issues. My mom has COPD. I get all of that in the one story. And but if we did approve a new structure, I did want some kind of indication about the look. I know the street. I love the neighborhood. I walk my dogs there, but there are bungalows on that street, and I just wanted to know if the outward appearance of that new structure would look like that or not. I mean, I know there's no plans, but just hypothetically speaking.
Yes. Very similar, front porch. We've been down looking in the Taylor neighborhood development, and we love those simple houses down there, and I think what we would build would look more historic than other things in that area.
Hey, Jan, this is Lance. How you doing?
I know it is Lance. Hey.
I'm inclined to approve a demolition on this. I knew your brother Sam real well, thought a lot of him. But I'm not sure about this. I think the city, don't they require you to have plans before we approve a demolition? I don't want to give you any kind of false hope or anything, but I think, don't you have to have plans?
Yes, absolutely. We just want to know the ceiling before we would spend more time leaving it vacant, because we've been letting it sit vacant. The roof is leaking. It's going to be horrendous to repair, and then I would have to do something to make it economically feasible, which would be rent it. It would be returned to rental property. So what we're trying to do, intervene here, is not return to a packed-out house on rental property, but to build a cottage, historic-looking, one-story home for us.
And specifically to answer your question, yes, we need to have plans, but there's no point in
going to that
expense to develop house plans if y'all hate the idea of tearing it down.
And are saying absolutely no, that won't happen. I have to move on because I've been paying insurance and taxes for a period of time, you know, and it's getting into my pocketbook. I need some indication or hope of what we could do.
Well, I mean, I would be inclined personally to do that. I would think that you would want to fit in with the rest of the neighborhood. I know your neighbors like Murray would want you to do that too, and I think you would do that. So something similar to the original house, I'd vote for that myself.
Absolutely.
We're all saying that based on the picture of the original house, there seems to be a real comfort level. The prospects of the new house, would be that the new house would resemble that as much as possible. I don't know that we're going to be able to go further than we are now in this meeting with the information we're sharing with you. And of course, the next step would be the formal process of you coming back with a request to demolish the property, and at the same time showing us for the new house, as you've seen happen twice in this meeting that you've been.
Yes, thank you.
Hey, Jack, if you don't mind, I'd just like to address just one quick comment real quick. I'm going to turn my camera on. I'd just like to address one comment that Lance made a moment ago. Lance, you're 100% correct in that, this is a complimentary review. We're trying to gauge, I think the Frymarks are trying to gauge the level of interest in, support for demolition here. And to be honest with you, we've met with them and the planning department on multiple occasions from the moment that the property came into their possession to today. And so as is often the case, we typically take the position that it's difficult to get a demolition, and so I think we've articulated that to them, but we've also articulated the process of, coming before the commission to be honest and say, hey, this is what we're considering, and to get some honest feedback, because if it's a no-go from the commission standpoint, then they're not going to waste their time and effort and money, to develop plans and things like that. So I think that they're just trying to, at least get a weather vane on where the commission stands if they were to come back. And ultimately, I think, what I hear is there's general support, but ultimately comes down to the final design of what is proposed. I think that is most important, and I think that they understand that, and they're willing to move forward with that. But if it was a no-go from the commission, then they weren't going to, take the time to be, develop those plans. So I just wanted to address that, because you're 100% right in that this is a complimentary review and there's no vote, there's no action formally taken by this commission.
Thank you, Ben. Are there any other comments about this particular issue that we're discussing? If not, thanks again for coming for the complimentary conversation. I hope you've gotten the information you need. I think Ben says it well. We seem to be more focused on what your plans are for the new structure than anything else. We don't take demolition lightly, but circumstances, situations, physical condition of the property, we all hear that, and we want to accommodate you in every way we can and be consistent with what we're charged to do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. There are no other items for our consideration on the agenda. Is there any other business, Kate, that we need to be aware of?
I'm going to be sending you guys some dates for virtual training from the Department of Archives and History.
Will that have to do with telephones and all the other virtual things that I have to do?
Yes, just another Zoom meeting, Jack.
Good. Yeah.
But at least one of you and one of our Courthouse Square commissioners needs to attend them for us to remain eligible for grants. So if no one signs up, I'm just going to be hounding you all. So if it sounds interesting to you, then please sign up, and I'll get those out to you probably on Monday. And then they are for Jolie and Blair, especially our newer commissioners. There is going to be what they call like a preservation boot camp, which I found really valuable when I first moved here. It's like a day-long seminar that's usually in Jackson, but obviously they're waiting on, I think they're waiting until later in the year because of coronavirus for that. But just everybody keep that in mind, and I'll send those dates out to y'all, and if you are able to attend, I would really appreciate it because I like to receive grants from them. So anyway, that's it from staff. And Jan and Eric, thanks for your patience for being last.
Thank you all. Is there a motion? I'm looking directly at you now, Diane, to adjourn. And Jacob?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Right.
Bye.